composed the 14 shlokas as a shloka kusuma and offered it to Sri Adi Shankara with folded hands or Anjani Mudra, and that's how it's called as the Charpata Panjarika. It's also called the Chaturdasha Manjarika. So we have 5 more after that composed by Sri Adi Shankara, and so there are 31 verses of the Bhaja Govindam. The 16th verse of Bhaja Govindam is the 4th of the Charpata Panjarika, and it goes like this. Subhoga Uvacha Agre Vanni Prishte Bhanuhu Ratrau Chibuka Samarpita Januhu Karatala Bhikshas Tarutala Vasaha Tadapina Vanchat Asha Pasha. The Vedantic Drishtanta here is an old man in Kashi on a cold winter morning trying to keep himself warm with a fire in front of him, Agre Vannihi, and the sun on his back, Prishte Bhanuhu. At night he sleeps couching with the chin, Chibuka, tucked, Samarpita, to his knees, the Januhu. His palms put together, Karatala, is his alms bowl, Bhiksha. And he sleeps under a tree as his residence, Tarutala Vasa. In spite of all this, Tadapi, he doesn't, for that matter, he continues to dwell on the Artha Kama Pradhana life internally. Though he has an external Linga Dharanam, Akasha Vastra, the color of flame, and there has to be a transformation to Vanaprastha Ashram, he continues to be a Mithyachara Sannyasa. We remember this Karmendriyani Samyamya Ya Aste Manasa Smaran Indriyarthan Vimudatma Mithyacharasa Uchate, the 6th shloka of the Karma Yoga chapter. To reduce possessions, obligations, relations, and transactions and practice Vedanta Vichara, that is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, should be the aim of Vanaprastha. Not doing so is to cheat oneself and God himself. Let us now focus on the last part of the phrase, Asha Pasha. 16th chapter, Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, the 12th shloka says, Asha Pasha Shatair Buddha Kama Krodha Parayanaha Ihante Kama Bhogartha Manyat Yenartha Sanjaya. Hundreds of expectations are due to this demonic disposition of the human mind. A Subhashita also says, Asha Nama Manushyanam Kaschit Ascharya Shrunkhala. Those hopes become the chain of hope. Question is, Katham Asha? In Kathopanishad, the first Vali, verse 1 to 8, Adi Shankara highlights Asha Pratikshe Sangatam Sunutvam Cheshtar Pute Putra Pashunam Sarvat. He explains what is hope and expectation. Asha is hope. It is a wish for something not definitely known but attainable. And he says expectation or pratiksha is a wish for something which is definitely known and attainable. Both fall into the realms of Asha Pasha. Vidura and the Dhritarashtra Samvada in the Stri Parva of Mahabharata, chapter 11, particularly talks about a picture which was given by Sri Bhaskar in March, a very beautiful picture of a man hanging from a tree, looking at a beehive above and wants to have the madhu of the beehive. He's in the samsara vana, and there are rats, a black and a white one, the night and the dark, biting away the branch. This was a typical picture of Asha Pasha. What is Pasha? It is a noose, a lasso. It is the power to bind, but here it means worldly attachments. Lord Ganesha has a Pasha, and that he uses to bind the obstacles and relieve bondage. Yama has a Pasha, and that is meant to bind the soul at the time of death. Varuna also has a Pasha in the form of a snake. What is the solution to this problem? How do we transform these problems into Dharma Moksha Pradhana life? Bhagwan Sri Krishna says in chapter 3, Shloka 30th, Nirashi Nirmama Bhutva Mai Sarvani Karmani. Even the sense of hope be given to Lord. Don't even have the sense of possession of hope. He says in chapter 10, the Vibhuti Yoga, Shloka 9, Madchitta Madgata Prana Bodhayantaha Parasparam. Fixed mind, fix your mind on me and enlighten each other to surrender their lives to me. No Asha at all. In short, completely reduce the Asuri Sampat, the Durgunas, and increase the Daivi Sampad, the Sadgunas. Narada Bhakti Sutra beautifully highlights in the 4th Adhyaya, Prema Nivarchanam, Anirvachaniyam, Prema Swarupam, Gunarahitam, Kamanarahitam, Pratikshana Vardhamanam, Avichinnam, Sukshmataram, Anubhava Rupam. Beautiful, Anubhava Rupam. Tat Praptya, having got this, Tadeva Lokasya, Tadeva Sujati, Tadeva Bhashyati, Tadeva Chintayati. We have to constantly be in touch with this Anirvachaniya. The 29th verse of Tirupavai. Matrainan Kamangal Matru Matrelo Prabhuvyas. Sri Andal prays, let there be no suppression of desire, but let there be only one desire that should be the sublimation of everything to God-centered desire and diverted to spiritual attainment. Hari Om sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar. It was a very nice description of a man sitting in the cold with the sun on his back. And you nicely described from the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita to Kathopanishad to every source that you can get on the 2 keywords, Asha, desire, Pasha, and it was a very nice picturesque description. We are amazed at the source that you were able to link. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Shankar. We go to Venkatesh. Your time starts, Venkatesh Prasad.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. I'm audible, sir?
Very clear. Go ahead.
Kurubhyo Namaha. Kurute Ganga Sagara Gamanam Vrata Paripalanam Athava Danam Jnana Vihina Sarva Matena Muktim Bhajatina Janma Shatena. This verse is dedicated to Guru Shankara by one of his famous disciples, Sureshwaracharya, who was made the first in charge of Sringeri Sharada Peetham or Dakshinamnaya Peetham. Adi Shankara has written an elaborate bhashya which runs into 2 books on one of the biggest Upanishads, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which consists of 400 mantras. Sureshwaracharya wrote a sub-commentary on this Guru's bhashya which ran to 12,000 verses. Similarly, he has written commentary on Taittiriya Upanishad in verse form. He is a very prolific writer who has written many of his bhashyas in verse form. Bhashyams written in verse form is called Vartikam, and hence Sureshwaracharya came to be known as Vartikakaraha. Sri Shankara Bhagavad-pada gives 5 cardinal principles in all his commentaries on Gita, Upanishad, Brahma Sutra, and his innumerable independent works. He substantiates each cardinal principle with elaborate analysis and logically establishes each one. Let's look at each of these cardinal principles one by one. Principle 1. Everlasting or permanent peace, security, and happiness are possible only through moksha. Principle 2. Moksha is possible only through spiritual knowledge. Principle 3. Spiritual knowledge is possible only through systematic spiritual education with the help of Guru and Shastra. Principle 4. Systematic spiritual education is possible only if one has a prepared mind. One may call it matured mind or pure mind. The 5th and final cardinal principle that a prepared mind can be accomplished through many varied or different spiritual exercises. While we have no choice in respect of first 4 cardinal principles, we have multiple paths to prepare our mind. It may be pilgrimage, it may be japa, dhyana, pranayama, upavasa, dana, or vrata, or any other thing which may purify our mind. These are the very methods to prepare the mind about which our poet Vartikacharya is discussing in this verse. Kurute Ganga Sagara Gamanam. This first line talks about Tirtha Yatra to various pilgrimages, places like Kashi, and have a dip in Ganga. Or go to Calcutta, where Ganga merges with ocean and becomes Sagar, and have a dip in this Ganga Sagar. Athava Danam, or make you charity if he is affluent. If you do not have money, you may visit an orphanage, old age home, spend some time with those less privileged souls, listen to their misery, pains, and console them. Practice pranayama, japa, dhyana, etc. Na annodaka samam danam, na tithit badashi sama, na gayatra paramo mantram, na matuh paradaivatam. Greatest danam is annadanam and jaladanam. Greatest vratam is ekadashi upavasam. Greatest chandasu matra is Gayatri mantra. And greatest deity is our own mother. Vrata Paripalanam. One may take the root of vratas like the Ekadashi Vrata mentioned above or any other vratas. Swami Chinmayananda defines and describes vrata beautifully. Educating the intellect to hold on to higher ideals, training the mind to obey the will, sharpening one's will itself and training it to be easily wielded by oneself, or the achievements gained by the practice of vows. Through firm determination and individual will, when one order that one's sense organ will not have for a fixed period of time, some of the things which they always like the most, there we have all the contents of a vow. And when it is undertaken in a spirit of dedication unto the Lord, and the entire mind is turned towards the Lord, it becomes a very efficient psychological training in recasting the mind, and it becomes religious vow. Here in his third line of the verse, the poet is giving the limitation of such exercise mentioned above. Jnana vihinas sarvamatena. He says, all these pious paths, methods, exercises will purify your mind, no doubt. Prepare your mind for spiritual study and spiritual journey. But all wise men unanimously sarvamatena, that despite all these practices, if you are not armed with jnanam, you will not attain moksha. Again, Swami Chinmaya says, howsoever beautifully and deliciously cooked our food, until that food becomes one with oneself, the sorrow of hunger cannot end. The snake you have seen on the rope with your foolishness, your ajnana, will not disappear by chanting Garuda mantra. Similarly, the ghost you have projected on the post will not go away by ringing the bell. Waking up is the only remedy for all the sorrows of the dream. Wake up, O limited ego, and come to apprehend your own infinite nature, wherein there is neither matter nor spirit. Now, in the last line of the verse, Vartikakara is putting a stamp of authority and declares, Muktim bhajatina janma shatena. Without spiritual knowledge, without Brahmagnanam, without Atmagnanam, you will not attain moksha. Muktim bhajati na janma shatena. Even after 100 janmas, you will not attain mukti. That does not mean, Param says, that you should not dip in Ganga, you should not undertake Vrata, Dana, etc. They are all required for preparing the mind. Therefore, he advises with all the love, prepare, learn, know, be free, and enjoy the eternal bliss. This is Vedanta. These are the cardinal principles enunciated by Sri Sri Shankara. In conclusion, I wish to recite a Kagga of our own Gita Charya DVG, whose Kagga is a Kannada incarnation of Bhagavad Gita and is called Jivana Dharma Yoga. Timmaguru takes the same 4 lines to tell what Vartikacharya has said in his verse and to cover all the points we discussed in the last 5-6 minutes. Bari Bhakti, Bari Karma, Bari Tarka, Dorakisadu Paramatma Darshanava, Bekadake Tapasu. ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಜೀವನಾನುಭವ ತಾಪರಿ ಮತಿಯು ಪರಿಪಕ್ವ ಆಗಲಹುದು ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. ಹರಿ ಓಂ. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkatesh. You have packed so much, including a lot of information about Sureshwaracharya, but you did full justice to that word jnana vihina. That means you may do anything, but if you don't work on spiritual knowledge, then all your efforts will not reach the final objective. So nicely covered. We go to the next speaker. Aruna, your time begins, madam.
Thank you. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Suramandira Taru Moola Nivasaha Shayya Bhutalam Majinam Vasaha Sarva Parigraha Bhogatyagaha Kasya Sukham Na Karoti Viragaha. So this verse is from the second part of the Bhaja Govindam. The first part, as Dr. Ravi Shankar said, was the Dwadasha Manjarika, 12 verses. And from 12 to 20, it's called Chatpata Manjarika. These verses from 12 to 20 have been added by disciples of Shankaracharya. So this particular verse was by a disciple named Nityananda. And like Subodha, who composed the earlier verse 16, there are no details about this disciple except for his name. So the literal meaning of this verse is, when a man is lying in the open halls of temples or under the trees, lying on the bare earth or wrapped in deer skin, avoiding gifts, giving up possessions and enjoyments, then who can say that he will not gain happiness from such a detached state of mind? This actually is a very amazing, wonderful verse. There's actually a lot of joy in this verse, as we shall see. First of all, when we imagine someone to be sleeping in the open areas or temples or lying in the bare earth wrapped in deerskin, our first reaction is one of horror and pity. It seems like a very sad state of affairs, like that of a beggar. It is pathetic. It looks like Nityananda is actually exalting a state of poverty. Then this which we cannot relate to. Then on the other hand, Nityananda is not describing some self-inflicted hardship or penance or tapas in order to make spiritual progress. He is not describing hardships and sacrifices like sleeping on the bare earth that one must make in order to attain moksha. It is neither poverty nor tapas that he is extolling. On the contrary, Nityananda is describing this condition as a wonderful state of happiness. This is a state of bliss, of total undiluted bliss. And how does that happen? So let's go back a few steps. Swami Param says that spiritual pursuit requires an unpreoccupied mind. Preoccupation of the mind is caused by 4 factors: possession, obligation, relation, and transaction. PORT. This is what Swami Param always refers to. This in total constitutes samsara. So Bhajagovindam tells us to reduce all of those 4 as we grow older. And this verse is actually dealing in particular with the most important of all, which are possessions. Possessions lead to preoccupation because if you have one possession, that's never enough. Every object leads to wanting more and more objects. This is called yogakshema. The other problem with possessions in general, that Swami Param says, is that they are temporary. They are usually vulnerable to change and therefore they are not permanent. This impermanence also causes the mind to be preoccupied and disturbed and anxious all the time. Therefore, the Shastras tell us to simplify life, the ultimate simplification being sannyas. Swami Param says we all don't need to take sannyas, but an attitude of simplicity will help us on the spiritual path. External clutter leads to internal cluttered thinking. Therefore, Nityananda says, Sura Mandira Tarumula Nivasaha. Imagine the sannyasi who has no possessions living at the foot of a tree or temple veranda. Saya Bhutalam, the earth provides him a place to sleep. Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha, he has given up all possessions. Therefore, Viragaha, this independent living, Kasya Sukham na Karoti Viragaha, to whom will it not give happiness? Nityananda here, the disciple, implies that external possessions have no connection to mental peace and happiness. Peace and happiness are connected to inner growth, maturity, and wisdom. Peace is connected to what we are inside and not to what we have. True, possessions have a connection to physical comfort, but for mental peace, possessions do not give you that. Physical comfort is not peace and joy. There are enough rich people in this world who are unhappy, and we see such people all the time. Therefore, Nityananda is expressing such joy and in a very positive way, extolling the sannyasi who owns nothing. Imagine the freedom from worry and the freedom from insecurity, the freedom from the ensuing emotions of anger, frustration, jealousy, etc., to one who has no material possessions. Such a person has a deep, deep abiding knowledge of the self, the Brahman, and has also got supreme bhakti or surrender, complete faith in the all-pervading consciousness that is the support for the world and thereby nourishes it. Nityananda is describing total freedom for one like this. How can someone with such freedom not be in bliss? Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Aruna, for a very nice explanation of a verse that manifests Nityananda by itself. From childhood, we used to listen to Subbalakshmi's voice and delight in the Sura Mandira Tharu. But now, when we get to know the meaning of these words, we realize how important it is to understand Brahma Vidya. I think it will come in the next verse. Yasya Brahmane Ramate Chittam. Once you realize that Brahman within you, you may not have anything around you, no possessions, obligations, but you can revel in that joy. Thank you very much. We go to the next verse, Divakar, your verse.
Audible, sir?
Yes. Go ahead.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Anandagiri Uvacha. Yogarato va bhogarato va sangarato va sangavihinaha yasya brahmani ramate chittam nandati nandati nandatyeva. So this verse is from Anandagiri, who is another great disciple of Shankaracharya. He is also a prolific writer who has written many bhashyams on the Vedantic texts. He has also written sub-commentaries of many Shankaracharya's work. One of the greatest work of Anandagiri is Upadesha Sahasri. So we all know that for lasting peace, security and happiness, we cannot depend on the external world. We cannot depend on the samsara because it is unreliable, unpredictable, uncontrollable and unsustainable. The only way we are going to get this eternal peace, security, and happiness is by internal or inner transformation. That internal transformation is possible only if we anchor onto something which is very stable. In order to achieve this internal transformation, Shastras prescribe us for ashramas, Brahmacharya ashrama, Grihastha ashrama, Vanaprastha ashrama, and Sannyasa ashrama. Broadly, Brahmacharya and Grihastha can be brought together under Pravritti Marga, whereas Vanaprastha and Sannyasa can be brought under Nivritti Marga. So, but Anandagiri here says that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what ashrama we are at. If we anchor onto something which is very stable, we are going to have mental stability. We are not going to get the internal transformation without the mental stability. Mental stability is possible only by holding on to something which is stable. That stable thing is nothing other than the Brahman, the Brahma Gnana itself. So here Swamiji gives a beautiful example of somebody taking a bath in the Haridwara Ganga. So there in Haridwara, Ganga flows very forcefully. It is very ferocious. But people who go to take a bath there, they hold on to a chain which is firmly fixed into the terra firma. So if you actually hold on to that chain, you can enjoy this Ganga Snana. This chain is here compared to Brahman. If you're anchored into Brahman, you can enjoy the Ganga Snana. Imagine somebody who's gone there to enjoy Ganga Snana and not holding on to the chain. So what happens to them? They are going to flow along with the Ganga. So they try to hold on to rock, they try to hold on to some branches or even other person, but none of them are stable. All of them will be flowing along with the Ganga. So instead of that, if they just hold on to the chain, they can enjoy the snana. If they don't hold on to the chain, where is the question of joy or enjoyment if there is so much threat to their own life? So that river, that Ganga flow is compared to samsara or the world. We may get a temporary joy and happiness, but if there is an insecurity, then there is no question of having this joy. So Yogaratova and Sangha Vihina refers to Sannyasa Ashrama or Nivritti Marga. Bhogaratova is Grihastha and Sangaratova, one with attachment. It doesn't matter what ashrama one is in, so long as they are anchored with Brahman, and that Brahman is none other than me, myself. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhanam. So that person who is realized is Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha. So that person will always be Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva. This Nandati Nandati Nandatyeva is nothing but the Paramananda. One who is self-realized will be Purnam. So he is Purna, he is infinite. That means Anantam. That Anantam means eternal happiness. He not only enjoys that, but he also can enjoy the Vyavaharika Satyam also. He can also enjoy the Ganga Snanam. So he also there is this verse in the second chapter, Atmanyeva Atmanatushtaha, that is 2.55, and 2.56 is दुःखेषु अनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहाः वीतरागभयक्रोधा स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते. This sthitadihi, this Brahmagnani will not see any difference in any ashramas or any difference in the external world. He will enjoy his life with absolute happiness which is Brahmananda. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Devakar, for a nice explanation of a very beautiful verse. Where, I like the word to revel and to be able to in Brahman, whether you are in yoga or bhoga. And this is one verse that we need to remember all the time. Smita, it's your time.
Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhagavad Gita Kinjidabhita Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita Sakrudapiyena Murari Samarja Sakrudapiyena Murari Samarja Kriyate Tena Yamena Nacharcha Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. This verse is written by another disciple called Dridabhakta. He talks about certain basic spiritual exercises. Here he mentions 3 of them. The meaning of this verse is even a limited study of Bhagavad Gita, drinking a drop of Ganga water, a casual worship of Murari, these can save from the fear of death. In this verse, we see that in order to become free from fear of death, all one needs to have to do is study the Bhagavad Gita, a sip of water from the Ganges, or to perform the worship of Lord Krishna at least once. Here, the study of Bhagavad Gita stands for scriptures, and for scriptural studies is one of the compulsory disciplines. Scriptural studies gives us the very purpose of every practice, benefit of practice, a right way of using them for optimum benefit. Since there are innumerable scriptures, as Swamiji explains, Ananta Shastram, Mahabharata itself has got 1 lakh verses. Ramayana has 24,000 verses. Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. And Rigveda mantra has 10,000 mantras. Since we have limited time, Alpascha Kalaha, Bhavascha Vignaha, that is with many obstacles. Therefore, we feel diffident. We are not confident about it. Veda knows our problem. So here, both Veda and Acharya Dridabhakta says that we need not study all the scriptures. The saram of all the scriptures is available in Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a sacred text and is the essence of all the Upanishads and the Vedas. Rasa Amarendra explains beautifully here. Bhagavad Gita is described in Padma Purana very similar to Bhagavatam. In Padma Purana, the Bhagavatam is described that the 2 cantos represent the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Just like the 12 cantos of Bhagavatam represents the form of Lord Krishna, similarly 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita represents the universal form of Krishna, that is Vishwarupa. Same Padma Purana describes the first 5 chapters of the Gita, the 5 heads of Vishwarupa. The next 10 chapters are the 10 hands of Vishwarupa. The 16th chapter is navel of Sri Krishna, and 17th and 18th chapters are the 2 lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Any chapter we pick up from Bhagavad Gita, actually it is associated with the form of Sri Krishna, and this is Shastric Pramana. Therefore, Acharya Dridabhakta says, if a person thoroughly studies Bhagavad Gita, it is more than sufficient. Even if a person studies Bhagavad Gita as per his or her requirement, that is Kinjita Dita, one should know the sadhana mentioned in the Gita so that one can practice properly. Even without being a student of Sanskrit, one can study Gita. Most important is to understand the sadhana and practice. The second sadhana explained here is Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita. Lava means drops. Here, Swami Viditatmanandaji explains beautifully, saying that the sacred water of Ganga also grants liberation, and what does Ganga symbolizes? As we all know, Ganga was released from the head of Lord Shiva, therefore represents a flow of knowledge. The Lord is the first teacher from whom knowledge has come down to us. As we pray before the lecture, Sadashiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. I salute the lineage of teachers beginning with the ever auspicious Lord Shiva, linked my Adi Shankaracharya in the middle and extending up to my own teacher. Therefore, Ganga symbolizes a perennial flow of the knowledge from the Lord right up to our own teachers. The re-emergence of the river Ganga from the years of Sage Janu represents Karana Parampara, the tradition of knowledge imparted by the teacher to the student. Swami Param says, Ganga Panam refers to Tirtha Yatra. Tirtha Yatra refers to tapas. Tapas means any form of austerity. Tapas is a second form of discipline. Tapas is a deliberate self-denial to gain or to establish mastery over sense organs. So the line Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita explains the second discipline as austerity, and Ganga symbolizes devotion. The next discipline is Sakrutapi Eni Murari Samarcha. Sakruta means once, Archa means Archana. Murari means Lord Krishna who destroyed the demon Mura. This line explains that at least once may you have the habit of worshipping the Lord. Just offer flowers or chant few mantras. Do namaskaran. Swamiji says this will enrich the house with good vibrations, that of Bhagavan Nama. By doing so, the child will also inculcate good samskara. This will have a tremendous effect on both the individual who is doing the puja, punaskara, and the members of the family. We cannot control the society, but we can certainly keep our home in a religious and spiritual atmosphere by getting up early in the morning before sunrise, praying to Sun God, who is Pratyaksha Devata, lighting a lamp, chanting few mantras. Let every action of ours means a worship to Lord, which is explained in Bhagavad Gita 46th verse, 18th chapter. Sakarmana Tama Abhyarcha Siddhim Vindati Manavaha. Remember the name of Lord and offer every action at his lotus feet. Finally, the third spiritual. So when a person studies Gita, worships Lord Krishna, sips a drop of Ganga Jal, what does a person gain? Kriyate tasya nayamena charcha. That is, such a person, that is, who has followed proper means, will never be afraid of death. He goes beyond the realm of death and transcends beyond Kala Tattvam. Thank you.
Thank you, Smita. Very nice explanation of this beautiful verse. We go to Purnima. Purnima, another popular verse.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, iha samsare bahudustare, krupaya pare pahi murare. Bhaja Govindam is one of the popular compositions of the great spiritual giant Adi Shankaracharya.
Purnima, you have to unmute yourself.
Hello, did we lose Purnima?
Hello. She is not able to come back.
We have an internet issue, I think. Shall we come back to her?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We'll go to Nilima, and at the end of the class, we'll come back to Purnima. Nilima?
Dr. Hegde, this is Jyoti. I will be presenting this verse.
Right. Sorry.
Ratya karpata virachita kantaha punya punya vivarjita pantaha yogi yogini yojita chittaha ramate balunmat tava deva. This shloka describes a yogi who is on the spiritual path or moksha marga to the truth that is beyond punya and papa. The meaning of the shloka is the yogi who wears but a quilt made of rags, who walks the path that is beyond merit and demerit, whose mind is joined in perfect yoga with its goal, revels in God consciousness, and lives thereafter as a child or as a madman. Rathya Karpata. Rathya means street, Karpata means rags, and Kantaha is quilt. Rathya Karpata Virachita Kanta. The quilt is made of rags that are picked off the streets. That the wise man covers his body this way is a figurative way of saying that he has no possessions and thus does not make any demands. He is clothed in patched up rags. He has given up possessions, obsessions, relationships, and transactions. This is the acronym PORT that Mrs. Aruna was mentioning earlier. The society may look down on this person and pity him, but the yogi himself revels because he is rich in knowledge. Vidyadhanam. An important aspect of the wise man is that he discovers fulfillment from within himself. He becomes a non-demanding person. He does not demand food, nor does he demand clothes or anything else. He is happy with whatever comes his way. Krishna refers to him as Yadricha Labha Santushtaha in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Shloka 22. He is happy with whatever is the labha or gain that comes by prarabdha. He is walking along a path or pantha that is devoid of virtue and vice, which is papa and punya. His actions can neither be classified as papa or punya. This is because there is an order in the universe. There is dharma or adharma. An action performed in keeping with that order is called dharma or punya, and an action that is performed in violation of that order is called adharma or papa. However, this punya and papa are only for those who have a sense of doership. A wise man is one who has become free of this sense of doership. No more is the ego saying that I am the performer of the action. So he is beyond punya and papa. It also means that he is not obligated to follow the rules and the regulations. He is a yoga niyojita chitta, one whose chitta or mind is niyojita or focused upon the knowledge of the self. Ramate balon mattava deva. Ramate means he always sports, he is actively merry. Earlier, his state of mind was said to be nandati nandati nandateva, and here it is described as being ramate. Balonmatta Tavadeva means this person is like a child or like a madman who is intoxicated. This wise man is not childish, but is childlike. He is not mad, but he is like a madman. He is not intoxicated, but he is like one who is. Joy is constantly springing like a fountain from his heart, and he is intoxicated with that joy. A child or a madman do not require external reasons to be happy. They are inherently happy. This does not mean that the jnani will act like a madman. His behavior will not conform to that of society. It means that he may smile or laugh and be merry without the stimuli that the society normally recognizes. Our Vedic culture emphasizes internal riches, whereas the materialistic society encourages external riches. This is the summary of this shloka. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti, for a very quick and very nice summary. This is one of the dangers of Brahma Vidya, because you may be so much internally joyful with whatever you have that others may think you are mad. What to do? Pallavi, your time starts.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So my verse is, Hari Om everybody. My verse is 24. Kastvam koham kuta ataha kame janani kome tata iti paribhavaya sarvam asaram vishvam taktva swapna vicharam. So in this verse, a disciple by name Surendra gives this verse. His personal and work details are not available anywhere except for this verse. In this, he requests seekers to constantly ponder and renounce attachment to Nama Rupa Prapancha. Then he says, Paribhavaya, which means probe into these facts. Kastvam, who are you? Koham, who am I? Kutyata, from where do all these people and things come? What is their nature? Kame Janani, who is my mother? Kome Tata, who is my father? Iti Paribhavaya Kuru. May you probe into this complex creation. If you start probing into every object you see in this world, for example, take our physical body. It is an organic structure, a shell made up of matter, and a home of various elements like organs, blood, tissues, bones, and so on, with their own names and forms, also known as Namamatra. This enclosure is named as a body. Everything is matter with Namamatra. Further decomposition of these various masses from a cell to an atom to a nucleus, all the way to a subatomic particle level, they have their own Namamatra. It's like moving from a general practice to a specialization. So there is no such thing as a body in absolute terms. The finding represents insubstantial objects with different forms. For a discerning mind, this world is a conglomeration of such entities. Therefore, Vedanta says this world is insubstantial. Surendra also says iti, thus by inquiring into the nature of this world. Sarvam, Vishwam, Asaram, Paribhavaya. May you ponder over the facts that the whole universe is insignificant. It is constantly changing and therefore unstable. By knowing this, if one is still going to hold to this unstable world, how can one get stability? One needs to seek out that ultimate stability which illuminates and pervades in every name and form. It is the one and only stable thing to lean on for security. So Vishwam Sarvam Asarya Paribhavaya. Thus pondering on this, may you give up the strong, passionate attachment to this creation. Surendra uses this word as swapna. This word is swapna tuliyam, which means this world is compared to a dream world. When you are sleeping and into a dream, it's so real. But when one wakes up, the so-called solid dream vanishes. Similarly, this world is so tangible, and through inquiry of Vedanta, when you wake up to reality, the world vanishes just like a dream. Therefore, the world is like a swapna vicharam, meaning obsession, dependence, emotional leaning upon the name and nama rupa is a dream, and you may want to give up for a permanent stability. Swapnam vicharam tyaktva. Leave your attachment, obsession of this world and attach oneself to Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. For example, you need to be well anchored to bathe in a river. Having renounced this dream-like creation, one must embrace Govinda. Stop depending on the world, start depending on God, the creator of this creation. Surendra says, world dependence to God dependence is intelligence. And internal invisible richness is superior to the outer richness of this glittery world. Hari Om.
Thank you. Thanks, Pallavi. That was a nice explanation of this verse. Purnima, I hope your internet
Purnima
is...
will present through my phone, sir. She's speaking. She will come online now.
Sure.
Prasanna heli. Prasanna, Purniya shuru madak heli.
Venkatesh, is the screen showing the right screen for you all?
Pardon me?
The screen, sir, screen.
It has not moved. It has not.
Sir, it's not moving.
So you may want to reshare it again, sir.
Hello. One ನಿಮಿಷ.
As it comes.
Yes.
Punarapi jananam. Yes. Okay, I will ask her to start. Purnima, start ಮಾಡಿ.
Bhaja Govindam is one of the popular compositions of the great spiritual giant Adi Shankaracharya. It is classified as a Prakarana Grantha, a premier to the major works. Though sung as a bhajan, it contains the essence of Vedanta and implores 21 verses, Shankaracharya concludes that all knowledge other than self-knowledge is useless. Shankara's words seem to be quite piercing. It is a knife into the heart of worldliness, and by removing the tumor of ignorance, we can attain everlasting bliss with the grace of Govinda. This verse 21 is one of the 14-verse compendium called the Chaturdasha Manjiraka Stotram. This verse is attributed to Nityanatha. The translation goes as follows. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Birth, death, and sleeping in the mother's womb over and over again. Iha samsare bahudustare. This samsara world is unfathomable and difficult to cross. Krupaya pare, pahi murari. O Murari, that is Krishna, protect me by your grace. This verse explains what happens when one does not put in effort to develop spiritually through the ways mentioned in the earlier verses. He gets victimized by the world and is subjected to the cycle of birth and death over and over again. As one's desires keep mounting and the possibility of exhausting them gets slim up, one has no choice but to submit to constant rebirth, which causes suffering and sorrow again and again. The desires ensure a constant return to life to exhaust one's vasanas or tendencies. Even in the present life, there is no respite. In between birth and death, there is a repeated change of situation in one's life. One is tossed around by the changes in the environment with no capacity to weather the storm. This state can be likened to a cone on its apex, which falls over unless supported at all times. Similarly, if one does not gain the maturity lent by the spiritual path, he tends to be unstable and always needs to be graded by people and objects around. With a little spiritual knowledge, he becomes like a cone on its side. By itself, the cone is steady, but a little nudge sends it oscillating for a long time. This state is much better than the cone on its apex. Going by this analogy, a person by himself may be fine, but a slight disturbance, an unkind word, or a minor setback can spark off a long spell of mental agitation. By the time he settles down, something else triggers another wave of agitation, and consequently, he continues to remain in a constant state of uneasiness. Spiritual people are those who are unaffected by the world. They are like the cones on their base. Even if you tip a cone over, it returns to base. Similarly, the ups and downs of the world have no impact on such spiritual people. They enjoy an uninterrupted state of bliss. Like actors on stage, they approach their roles in life with a sense of objectivity. They feel deeply and intensely, but maintain their poise because they understand their true identity and the play of the matter, that is the world. Here it can be said, the trick is to exhaust all the vasanas or tendencies through actions undertaken without ego and egocentric desires. At the end of the verse, the speaker appeals to Murari, Lord Krishna, to save him. He does his best, but knows that the journey is arduous. Effort alone is not sufficient in spiritual success. The grace of the Lord is equally important. But it is also true that the supreme grace works only if one has put in adequate efforts. There are two interpretations to this line, Krupaya pare, pahi murari. The devotional angle is one of humility. That is, you, the Lord, know best. I am in ignorance. Please take me across the samsara, that is, world of change. The intellectual understands the law of karma and looks upon Krishna as the supreme power that has set the law in place. Either way, there is an act of surrender after having done one's best. This helps overcome the anxiety for the fruit. So if one reaches out to Bhagavan, who is beyond the concept of time, and thereafter deliberately enters the world, he is no more caught up. He is ever outside the world. Hari Om.
Thank you, Purnima. Nice explanation of an important verse, which says that we have to make the most of this life so that we don't get into this cycle of punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramyaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhakvave. Thanks to all the speakers and all those who made this arrangement possible. Thank you, everybody. In spite of a massive storm, our program went on very well.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
We have to make this on Wednesday also, no, sir? Sir? Even tomorrow we have to start at 6:30 only, no?
Tomorrow